Hello everybody and welcome to Into the Heart Wild. My name is Alyssa and today we will be going over my November wrap-up. So first I would like to say apologies for not releasing any videos in November after the first two that I released. Wasn't expecting my November to be as busy as it was with the holiday and then working extra hours at work. I had no time to film anything. Uh, so that's why I was kind of silent on the channel. Also, all of this look that's going on right now, you're gonna see it for like maybe 4 videos coming up because I am batch recording. So yeah, just be prepared to see this same pink look going on for a while. So with that said, in November, I was doing the challenge of NetGalley November, where all of your reads are based off of your NetGalley backlog that you have. I had 19 books on my NetGalley backlog, which I have learned in comparison to other people is not that bad. Because I have seen some people have like 200 books on their ARC backlog, and I'm just like, I could never. So I started with 19 and I finished with 14. So I managed to get through 5 books. 2 of those I read all the way through. 3 of them I DNF'd. So yeah, it was not the greatest reading month. I did read some random middle grade books throughout the month or whatever, but I'm not gonna like review those or anything because I just read them to kind of get, because I read all 3 DNFs like in a row. It was like DNF. And so I was like, I need to read something that's gonna be kind of fun. So I popped on some middle grade audiobooks. So anyways, with that said, let's go ahead and let's jump into what all I read. I will start with the DNFs and then I will go into the 2 that I did read. Actually, there was a third. I'm sorry, I totally forgot. There was another one because I ended up picking up one during November, but then read it and reviewed it. So there is actually one more. So I will still start with the DNFs though. So the first DNF is A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy I. Lin. This is a YA fantasy, and I DNF'd it due to the fact that it follows the same formula that every other YA fantasy book follows. So it really left nothing to the imagination. You know, it was the same type of girl. I'm not like anyone else. I've met my love interest by chapter 3. I get myself involved in political things that I really have no issue being involved in, you know, we've had our first fight and now we hate each other. And I'm it became, this is why I struggle with YA, because it's so formulaic, and like if it works for other people, that's great. But I need variety in my stories. And the only element for this book that I actually genuinely did enjoy was the tea magic, but it wasn't strong enough to keep my attention because everything else just felt like every other YA book I had read. The characters they just felt like the same cookie cutter idea, personality wise, and I was just kind of like, I grew bored with it. I started predicting what was gonna happen. I was like, she's gonna, like, I literally predicted that like she'd meet the person who was like, there was a person in the first chapter who was like mysterious in the dark. Turns out that's the love interest, and like I knew it. I was like, oh, this guy's gonna be the love interest, like, and I wasn't wrong, you know. So I mean, if in the follow up, my thoughts are wrong or whatever, that's great. I'm never gonna make it there because I couldn't even get through the first book. So that was the first one that I DNF'd, unfortunately. Beautiful covers though, like I will definitely say that, because that's what drew me in, was the covers. And I had hoped that they had been good because I would have liked to have had those on my shelves, but unfortunately not. The second book that I DNF'd was Sundial by Katrina Ward. This is a horror book. I'm still relatively new to exploring horror, and I have discovered I like the horror that has monsters that go bump in the night, and not so much the weird, the psychological kind of horrors, because they just kind of bore me. This one, I didn't care for like 90% of the themes, you know, like the cheating her husband was doing, the verbal abuse that she was going through with him. I thought the story was going to focus on her daughter, because her daughter does this very horrific thing to their other daughter. And so I thought like the story was going to revolve around like figuring out what's going on with the oldest daughter. And instead it went into this weird thing where she's like, let me tell you about when I was a girl here at Sundial. And like Sundial is a place in the middle of nowhere. And it just, it was just listening to her be like, I was different from other girls because I grew up on this hippie farm with my parents, and we saved these dogs, and then you find out like these dogs are being experimented on. And so like if you don't like animal death, I do not recommend this book. You know, and it's just like there was nothing that was making me like feel like, wow, this is so scary, this is so frightening, like none of that. Like I was just like, what is the point of this? What is going on? Like, okay, cool, where's the scary? Can we go back to the daughter? Can we figure out why she's kind of like running around killing things and has like psychopathic like tendencies? Like so I want to say I made about 50% into that one before I was just kind of like, I'm bored, I'm done, I don't care. It wasn't enticing at all. So there's that one for you. And the third one that I DNF'd, which I am extremely disappointed with, is In the Serpent's Wake by Rachel Hartman. This is the sequel to Tess of the Road. I absolutely love Tess of the Road. It is one of my top favorite YA books, because that one really strays from the formula, because that's all about Tess and her journey and her healing, and just it's very plot driven, and it was amazing. In the Serpent's Wake was a hot mess. There was so many plots. There's slavery, racism, religious wipeout, colonization, along with exploration and scientific research, and you're just like, oh my god, like there's a whole like portion of this book where you meet this woman, this Lady Amelia, and she just, the way she talks about the native people of the island that her family like colonized is just horrendous. And you know, she's friends with Lady Marga, who's one of the main characters you're following, and like you expect and like hope that like Lady Marga would like speak up against her and stuff, and no, because you know they got to keep their friendship going, and you know they have to they need their underwater sea thingy or whatever to be fixed, and like they need her help, and if she makes her mad by, you know, going against what she says, they can't get that help. And I was just like, oh, so you're trash too. Okay, Lady Marga, good for you. I also did not like how Miss Hartman had decided to handle the return of William. William is a character that you've learn about in Tess of the Road, and him and Tess have a very horrendous connection to one another. And I just he was there for like 10% of the book. He was there for, because I made it 67% into this book, and he was there for 10% of this book, and that was it, because of she removed him from the story, like, altogether. Like, if you guys can deduce what that means, I'm pretty sure you can. And I didn't like how she handled it. I didn't like how she handled Tess and Will, like, seeing each other again for the first time after so many years of their horrific situation. And I'm just like, I wanted her to handle it better. I did. Because I felt William needed to be held more accountable for what he did to her. And I feel like the way that she did it in this was kind of like a cop-out. Like, oh, here he is. He found out what he did. She's upset. Let's remove him from the story and from everybody's lives. And I was just kind of like, so yeah, you know, and like the only plot line that I wanted to care about was getting to the Southern Pole to find the Southern Serpent. It like stopped existing halfway through because of all the other plots that were going on in there. And Tess felt like she didn't exist through most of the book. And that was the drawing point with the first book, was it was very character driven, where Tess was going on her journey, and like she would come across horrible things that were happening around her, but she was always like the central focus point of whatever was going on. And these ones, it's like you can go freaking chapters on end, like, without Tess so much as being in the same room, and you're just kind of like, I don't care. And so by 67%, when she had decided to introduce another new character, I said, I'm done. I'm done. And it was another depressing storyline, and I was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I can't. Like, Tess the Road, beautiful, masterpiece, wonderful. In the Serpent's Wake, I have never wanted a sequel to not exist. That is my honest truth. I wish it didn't exist. So I was very disappointed about that one. So now I'll go into the ones that I did finish. One of them, what is it called? So the one that I picked up during November, because they put it up during November, was called And Put Away Childish Things by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This was one, I rated it 3 stars. It's probably, at this point, out of all the ones that I've read by him, which I haven't read everything he's written, but I've read, I want to say like 5 or 6 of his work so far. It is my least favorite. It does make a lot of references to like Narnia, and the base idea is very similar to Narnia. A writer creates a world where you go through some sort of portal and you get to this little world or whatever, you know, and he makes references to Narnia. Like I said, a lot of the characters sound like the Narnia characters. Basically, it's like the pagan version of Narnia, because as we all know, Narnia is like very based in Christianity and everything. And just for the most part, the story was just kind of boring. I did like the darker, twisted, creepy explanations of the characters from this other world, because I can't remember the name of this story series that he created for this book. But anyways, like, they were creepy. They were weird. Like, you were like, what is going on? Like, what is happening? Because the world is basically, this storybook world really did exist, and it's currently dying, you know. And just the execution was just kind of slow and kind of boring. I didn't like the main character. I didn't care for him at all. And then the end, the end made me feel stupid, because I couldn't understand what Adrian was trying to say, because it got very scientific. It got very, look at all these big fancy words that I know. And it just, it's so starkly different compared to the other things that I've read by him, because I've never had issues understanding what he's trying to say and what he's trying to portray, and to understand what he's saying. But for whatever reason, the last like 20-ish% of the novella, because it's a novella, by the way, so maybe it was more like maybe the last 15%, I had no clue what he was trying to say. It was paragraph after paragraph of me just not understanding what it was that was going on. And by the time I finished the novella, I really honestly don't understand what happened at the end. And it's one of the few times where like the book genuinely made me feel stupid, because I feel like I should have been able to understand it, but I couldn't. And it was just because of the way that all the information was presented. Like, it was just confusing. It was over, the words that were used to explain it were just so words I've never heard of before, that I'm just like, what? So yeah, it got overly scientific to the point to where I feel like if you're not like really involved in like the super scientific things, or you're not super into the sci-fi and everything, you're not gonna enjoy it. Because like I said, it made me feel stupid. And I gave it the three stars because when he described the world and and like the creatures of the world and stuff, I genuinely enjoyed those and everything. It was just that last 15% like really kind of like ruined the experience. So maybe it was more like a 2.5 to a 3, like right around in there. But it's definitely not one that I would recommend. It's not up there in the list of these are the books he's written that I would recommend. So yeah. Okay, the next book that I read was called Ghost Cloud by Michael Mann. This is a middle grade book, and I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed this one. I thought it was really great. Basically, the story with this one is there is a city where all of these kids are taken, and they have to basically work in like mines. And I'm like, what? They have to work in mines? What? And I'm like, does this book involve adults being trashed? Because that is one of my favorite tropes in middle grade books, is adults being trash. They're just like I love when they don't beat around the corner that like adults can be trash. Like they're horrible people. Like adults are horrible. And if adults could like put children through horrendous situations, I think a lot of them would, because there's so many adults that I know who just genuinely hate children, and which is like weird to me, because like I don't hate children. Like I have one myself, you know. But for whatever reason in middle grade books, I love when like all the adults are just like trash humans. Like they're just absolute trash, because you're like, I'm never gonna root for that person. And that's what this book had. This book had that trope where just all the adults were trash. There was one of the main characters. You follow Luke and his 3 friends, and one of them, she's a girl. What was her name? Jess. She was my favorite because this girl was obsessed with plumbing. You heard that right, plumbing. Like fixing pipes and all of those things. Like she was obsessed with it. And I was just like, this is a personality trait that you can only come across in a middle grade book for. Like this like she was always talking about pipes and fixing the piping, and like she knew how to do it. It's because her uncle did it, and she thought it was like the coolest job her uncle ever had. And I was just like, this is amazing. So I definitely, I loved her character so much. But basically, Luke ends up being able to meet a ghost, and they have to figure out like why all of them are being punished to work in these mines and everything, and they find out all these different secrets that are going on, and that kids who are being released aren't actually being released, and there's these horrible trade things going on where like this lady in her little mine factory is like trading kids to this factory in like France or whatever, and you're just kind of like, wow, what? It's a pretty fast paced as well, just all around, just kind of like weird random kind of little theme that was going on with it, but it was it was addicting because you're just like, what is happening to these poor kids? So yeah, definitely enjoyed that one. I know it probably seems like I didn't, but I'm just like, I know you guys don't really care for the middle grade reviews, so we'll move on to the next one. Okay, and before I get to the 5-star read, I would like to say there is one other one that I started. It is called, because I haven't finished it yet because I'm not sure, but it is called A Blade Through Time by Lewis Coleman. I started this one. It started out very strong. The first like 5%, very strong. Lots of action. You immediately get introduced to the main character who has the ability to go back in time and try things over again. And after that first like 5%, after that is established and the character is then like moving on to the next part of, you know, trying to stop this specific event that happens in the first chapter from happening, it went from like super high to just blue, and I got very bored with it very fast. It also just started like getting very like, the character is always like talking about these like philosophical things and just talking with philosophers. So far I don't like how the time travel magic is being handled. I think it would have been kind of interesting to see like him use the magic and like see the scene replay, but instead we just get told, oh, I redid this scene, and that's like kind of like how the character like presents the information to you. He's just kind of like, oh, I redid that scene and I redid that scene and I redid this scene like 40 times till I could get it right. And I'm like, it would have been kind of cool to see like 1 or 2 like actual like replays of a scene. I don't know if that ever ends up happening because at the moment I'm like paused on it, since I don't know if I actually want to DNF it or not. So we'll see. So now it's time to get to my 5-star read. And if any of you follow me on Twitter, maybe you guys have figured out what that 5-star read is, because I have made sure to let the author know, because I have no negative thoughts about this book. By 12%, I knew this was going to be a 5-star read for me, and when I finished this book, I was like, this series, it's gonna be a favorite. This is gonna be a favorite series when it's done. I can feel it in my bones. We're gonna pull out my fancy book here because I do own it. I had the ARC, didn't read it in time, but then Goldsboro did a special for it. The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. You guys, oh my god, I loved this so much. I loved Von Vault, I loved Bressinger, I loved Helena. Matas my heart. Like I was in tears. This book had me crying. It had me crying sad tears, it had me crying happy tears, it had me crying tears of like relief. Just, there's a character, I was so scared. I was like, no. It was one of those things where like I didn't realize how much this character meant to me until I thought I lost them, and I was like, yeah. Like I was a mess during that whole thing. The action is great. It's very easy to follow along. You know what's happening. Seeing Von Vault go from like this very level-headed character to this ball of anger, you're just like, oh my gosh. The relationships between Bressinger, Von Vault, and Helena, so many different dynamics, so many different dynamics because Bressinger and Helena, they work for Von Vault. So you get like, I'm your boss, you're my employees. Then you have the apprentice and mentorship vibes from both those men to Helena, because Helena's 19. And both of these guys are old grumpy men, which are my favorites in books. And then you also get like this like father-daughter vibes from them. There's so many different dynamics between the three of them, and especially with the two with Helena. And they're all just amazing. And the story is told from Helena's recounting. And one of the things that I really liked with Helena's recounting is that she would sometimes pull herself out of the recounting to like remind us that she's telling us what happened. And there is one event where I am so grateful that Swan was like, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know what happens to this character instead of making you wait 3 books. Because I would have lost my mind not knowing what happened to that particular character, because they came in like kind of late towards the book, like to probably say about mid portion of the book till the end, and I was like, I've had you for 5 minutes and I don't want to lose you. But I think it was also how this character was in relation to Von Vault. I also liked that Swan had explored Helena's own personal feelings towards Von Vault. She didn't know if she was in love with him at times. She didn't know if she seen him as a father. She didn't know if he was just like her boss who told her what to do all the time. Like, she always had these different thoughts in regards to her own personal feelings towards Von Vault. And all of this really helped give great depth to each of the characters and just made them all the more interesting. He also takes a jab at the one bed in the room trope, because I'm gonna tell you guys right now. I hate the one bed trope. Okay, I hate it. It's just I hate it. So when he made that jab, I was just like, this is good stuff. The magic in this, the minute Von Vault used the Emperor's magic, I was like, more right now. I want more. And Swan said, no, I'm gonna make you crave it for the entire book, because Von Vault's character would only use it when necessary or when he felt it would be appropriate to use. It's not like your other fantasy books have magic where like they're just slinging their magic around everywhere. Like, Von Vault's like, I'm gonna use it when I need to use it. And it makes you crave it because you're just like, I wanna see you use it. And I really liked the Emperor's voice. There's also, I'm pretty sure as people have heard, there's necromancy magic, which again, it was another one of those things where it was only used when it needed to be used. Swan really played up the craving for the magic, but he also made sure to follow through with it so that you knew that there is magic in this world. There's Claver. I am going to keep my fingers crossed that Swan will make this man fall into the most cynical, crazy, fanatic religious man that he is. Like, I just want to see him, like how I'm seeing Von Vault fall into his anger. I want to see Claver just go from his like, I'm very religious, to being just like that overzealous, fanatic, psychopathic religious man, because I love when I see that. Like, I just love seeing the descent into madness and chaos. I don't like Claver's character, but I want to see that because it's just I feel like it's going that direction because he's already done like some kind of like not cool things. So like, I want to see the descent more. So I'm gonna hope that happens. The world is very interesting. Just like the lore and everything is very good. I definitely enjoyed all of that. It's got a religious storyline. You know, one construct was removed to put another one on top of it, which sounds a lot like the original that was there. Sorry about that. So one construct that sits on top of another one but sounds an awful lot like it. So yeah, it just overall, just every single point about this book was just, it was amazing. It was amazing. Like, I love Von Valt's character, like I said, and then just, they're all just so amazing, and I cannot wait to see what happens next, especially with like how this one ended and everything, just with Von Valt's character and everything. So I'm so excited. Like, it makes me kind of glad that I ended up putting off reading the arc for so long, because Tyranny of Faith comes out in February. So I'm like, which, by the way, I thought I missed out on my opportunity of getting my matching copy from Goldsboro, but I didn't. But guys, I was so scared. I was so scared that I missed it. But yes, 5 stars. Definitely recommend this one. Go pick it up. You will not be disappointed. And so that is everything that I read in November. I almost said December. So if you have read any of these books, if you enjoyed this video, drop a comment, like the video. If you would like to see more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.